Let's let Zoom do what it's supposed to do. It's trying to get us there. I need to go to Facebook so I can see the question too.
S-U-A-R-A, first name.
It will be Councilwoman. It will be my council page, and we are live on Facebook, and somebody is there, and I see all of you. All right. We're live. Good afternoon, everyone. It's 3 p.m. Thanks for joining us on this wonderful, beautiful Saturday afternoon. I know that you all have a whole lot to do, but we're grateful that you're spending your time with us as we continue the budget conversation series. The whole point of the series is to make sure that we give you a whole lot of information. You have the opportunity to ask questions, but more than anything, to know that your elected officials are listening, because the budget that the mayor has is now in front of the council, and the council will still have to vote on it and make our own decisions before it's finalized. And so this conversation has been very helpful. This and the hearings that the budget chair is doing are very important because it allows us to educate, but also to gather information as we make decisions. So this afternoon, we am joined by Assessor of Property, Honorable Vivian Wilhoite, and Mr. Jason Freeman, who is with SEIU Local 205. We want to look at the reappraisal process, where we have, what it's done, how you all are feeling. I've got email, I've got text. This is an opportunity. Our office has done a wonderful job going around the county and explaining this, but this is another opportunity for you to listen to what is going on, what's been happening. And more than anything, if you have questions about the appraisal you just received, if you do want to appeal, what is the process? How do you appeal? And that's what this is about. So without further ado, I want to bring Assessor Wilhoite on, and I want her to go ahead. And so thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Thank you. And so you have the floor. Would you tell us about the reappraisal process? More importantly, on individual level, what does that mean to somebody like me, and what can I do? And you're the expert. I'll give you the floor. We'll let you speak for about 20, 25 minutes, and then we'll start taking questions from folks that wants to know more about it. Let me also say, before we get into our conversation, for those that are joining today, because these two topics that we're discussing is very important. And I believe that a lot of you may have questions. If you don't, then that's fine. But we want to give ample time for us to be able to discuss it. And so this session I'm hoping will be an hour and a half, about 45 minutes on the reappraisal and 45 minutes on the referendum. So I hope you'll stick with us. I hope you stay and watch and ask questions and listen. And so Assessor Wilhoite, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me here today, Councilmember-at-Large Zulfat. It is a pleasure to be here and so excited to provide this information. It's very critical. Let's get right to it, because I know you've got a lot of questions. The audience, the listening audience, and the viewing audience has a lot of questions. So we'll get right to it right now. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. All right. Can everybody see the screen? Okay, so we're in the reappraisal, and we just want to let you know that in reference to how the reappraisal in general works, it's not about us setting the menu. It's not about us setting the prices. It's really just about us wanting to be fair in reference to how we provide you with values. I think that the very first thing that we need to do is people need to understand, why do we reappraise? Well, the first thing is that we're under an obligation by the 4 years approved by the State Board of Equalization. Davidson County did its last reappraisal in 2017. Now we're in 2021. Next reappraisal is going to be in 2025. When a reappraisal is done, we have to start right away, starting on the next reappraisal. Then the first 3 years, we're doing visual inspection of all of the properties. There's about 260,000 properties, basically 264,000 properties in Davidson County. And in the fourth year, we establish our value models that are calibrated and analyzed. Another reason why we reappraise is because values across Davidson County do not change uniformly. Since the last reappraisal, we have seen those values not change uniformly across the county. So what we have to do is do a reappraisal to reestablish equity and value. Well, that's where we want to, well, at the bottom line, we don't want a person in a cold market paying more than their fair share. How do we reappraise? Well, that's very important to know too as well. We're not doing swags, some wild blank guess. We're not just making them up as we go. We are governed by state laws, and we must follow best practices that are recognized throughout the United States. We analyze sales data in the market. We use the cost approach, income approach, and market approach to value. The very same approaches that are used by a fee appraiser who you will go to or your bank will go to in order for you to do a refinance for a lower rate, or for your bank to provide you a loan against your home, because your home is the biggest value, it's the biggest investment you will make in your life. So we use those approaches to value, income, cost, and market approach. But we also have to comply with national standards. The Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice is very important. And we're also governed by the State Board of Equalization and their guidelines. So it's very important that you understand we don't make these numbers up. We establish these values as of 1/1 of each year. Many times, if any of you have ever seen me or heard me talk, or even Councilmember-at-Large Zulfat, and of course our good friend here, Mr. Jason Freeman, and everyone, I started out as saying when I was elected, I am not the tax assessor. No, my title is not the tax assessor. I am the property assessor, or the assessor of property. The assessor of property is the formal name. The reason why we say that and we stand very confident on that is because the state constitution says so. The state constitution establishes what is called an ad valorem tax system. Let's take a look at it very briefly here. On the left side, your right, my left, you will see the assessment function that are assigned to the property assessor. That would be me. That would be my incredible staff. What do? We identify, list, appraise, classify all taxable properties to achieve equity and values and prepare the annual assessment roll. What is the annual assessment roll? That is our final roll that we provide to the trustee so that the trustee can take that roll once we're done our work and be prepared to receive receive the tax rate, which tells property owners how much they must pay. So we do this, why? Because every 4 years, it is required by law to do a reappraisal. And then we send that assessment roll to the county trustee. She applies the tax rate and calculated tax bill and collects the tax payment. Well, let's go to the other side of this tax system that you have in front of you. The taxation function is with the county and legislative body. County meaning county mayor, which we don't have a county mayor. We have a metropolitan mayor because we have a unified government. And then we have the legislative body, which is the Metro Council members. So the taxation function of how much you will pay really lies by law with those bodies. They are the tax assessor. Nothing, no pun intended, but that's what it is. But we work together, and how we do that is that the mayor then establishes his annual budget, which is what Councilmember Suara was saying earlier. You're now in a budget season from the legislative body that's reviewing what he is saying that is to be the budget for the city. The legislative body then will decide whether to set the tax rate. As you know, very recently at the State of the Metro address, Mayor Cooper announced he announced the certified tax rate. We'll talk about that in a minute, but the certified tax rate he has announced to become the tax rate. So the certified tax rate to become the tax rate is the tax rate that he is wanting to see passed. And whenever that is finalized, usually in somewhere about the second week of June, and Councilmember Suara is going to be talking about that shortly as well, that tax rate is then applied to our final assessment roll, the assessment roll that this office provides to the trustee. It's a final assessment roll. It's not an in-between. It's not a preliminary. It is the final assessment roll unless there's some corrections that have to be made to it by this office. But nonetheless, the tax rate applies to the assessment roll sent over to the county trustee. She does her calculation within the computer, generates the tax bill, and then collects the taxes. So as you can see, our responsibilities are clear. We identify, list, appraise, and classify taxable property to achieve fairness and equity and value, to prepare an annual assessment roll. And what's important in that whole statement? In a timely manner. We must do it in compliance with the law. And we don't want to ever be late, but there have been times we've been worried about that. So what we don't do, we don't taxate. What we do, we evaluate. I'm the assessor of property, not the tax assessor. And here are a number of the different classifications that we provide the values on every 4 years and sometime in between years, depending on if the property has had some improvements. So one thing that has always been a question of thought to many property owners is that we're really trying to stick it to them. We're trying to raise money for the city. No, we're not. Reappraisal, while what we do, let me just back up and say this, while what we do makes up 55 or contributes to 59% of a city's budget, it is not designed to raise revenue. It is designed to reestablish equity. When we do the certified tax rate, when that comes about in a reappraisal year only, that is to ensure that the local government is not going to get a windfall of added revenue on existing construction. I think this was something that Mr. Freeman learned quite a bit about back in 2017. That is key. A lot of people did not realize that, but the reappraisal is not designed to raise money. The reappraisal is designed to collect the same amount of money it collected in the same year while it's establishing equity and value. Where does the city get its money? Well, you got a number of places, grants, all different type of things that may come from the federal government. And of course, new construction. We have to remove the new construction in order to get to a certified tax rate. But it is required to adjust it so that we can receive the same amount of revenue as in the previous year. It's not designed to raise money. This is a great, great example. I love this example. I can explain it, but I like bringing in, letting you see some of my incredible staff. Randy Ward, who is going to be becoming my chief deputy of operations, is going to explain to you how the certified tax rate affects a reappraisal year and how is it comprised. This is the greenhouse, the blue house, and red house. I find this a phenomenal example. Randy Ward, will you take it away?
Hello, how's everyone doing? Okay, so this is only an example.
Yes.
Just like Assessor Wilhoite said, we're looking at, even though we are referencing the 4.221 tax rate, which was the tax rate in 2020, this 3.127 is only an example. We developed this example months ago, just for an example, just to explain the CTR. And in this case, all three of these houses are valued at $250,000 from 2017 to 2020. That's another thing, is that when you receive your value, it's going to remain the same for 4 years unless you make changes to the property or, God forbid, there's some sort of damage or something to your property. And we're referencing the 2020 taxes. So we have all three houses valued at $250,000. They collected $2,638 in 2020. You can see down here, $7,914. That's the total taxes that were collected on these three homes in 2020. Let's hop over to the 2020 appraised market value. The greenhouse went up 20% to $300,000. The blue house went up to $337,005 or 35%. And in this example, the countywide average is 35%. So this one went up the county average. The red house went up 50% to $375,000. You can see the taxes that they paid, even though the greenhouse went up 20% because of the new tax rate, the certified tax rate, the taxes went down $293 to $2,345. Because the blue house went up the countywide average of 35%, it's paying the same exact taxes, $2,638, paying the same amount it did in 2020. The red house, which went up 50%, is only paying $293 extra or $2,931. A lot of people think, oh no, my property value went up 20%, my taxes are going up 20%. Not the case. It all depends on what the countywide average is and whether you're above, below, or at the countywide average. You'll come down here, you'll see that 35% was the average that everything went up. Here is based on the CTR of 3.127 in the example, $7,914 was collected, the same that was collected in 2020. Not designed to raise revenue. That's what the CTR is for, and that's exactly what it's done in this example. And if you have any questions about that later, we'll be glad to answer them. Thank you so much.
So you can see how the certified tax rate is one to protect the the property owners in the law to not raise revenue. And it's very important that it is calculated correctly.
Assessor Wilhoite,
Yes.
if I may jump in, because we're on this screen and I think it's a very important screen. And if Randy wants to come back, the certified tax rate did show that we cannot raise more money on the county level. So what the city or county is collecting remains the same. But on the individual level, there is a change. And that change is tied to where you live. So just like it's showing, I wanted to make sure that people understand that, because I think that's a lot of the things that most people don't understand. We said we're not collecting more, but that is on the county level. But you as an individual property owner may end up paying more, like the house in red, because the area appraisal average in that area went up. So I just wanted to point that out, because, and I would love a copy of this this example. It's a great visual. I wanted to make sure people understand that. Thank you.
But once again, you want to also put with that the point that the reappraisal is done to ensure that a market that is more depressed than another market is not paying their fair share. So you're looking at the activities in the market. So when you look at the greenhouse, when you look at the greenhouse, it went up by 20%. Even though it went up by 20%, it's not as active as the market in the red area. So that is called reestablishing equity, establishing equity where you're not paying more than your fair share. You want to add that to it as well, but you're still collecting the same amount of money, no doubt about that, as you've done in the previous year. We'll definitely give you this copy of this as well, no doubt. Okay, all right. So this is a wonderful example. This is one that we think is extremely phenomenal in reference to people understanding how the certified tax rate comes about and why it exists, and based on what information, previous reappraisal. We do not use new construction in reference to our calculation, none of that. And please know that the state of Tennessee, which is the State Board of Equalization, as well as the division under the Comptroller's Office, we have to provide reports quarterly, constantly, and they have to approve the information that is provided to them. So basically they provide us with that certified tax rate because they have to make sure that it is on point as being revenue neutral. This is just an example of the summary of the assessment in various levels where we have provided valuations on various categories across Davidson County. This is a summary of the 2020 reassessment. So what do we know? We know that there is a 34.05% countywide median appraisal percentage that has been established from the reappraisal from our observation. We know that there's a 4.9% in new construction. That's real property growth in 2020, which is pretty phenomenal. You want to speak to that, the 4.9% growth?
Okay. It's just total growth, and of course that and just like we were saying earlier with the CTR, certified tax rate, that is only on existing construction. This 4.9% in new construction growth is what's going to give more money to the county.
Exactly. And the average of that new growth has been somewhere between 30 million, sometimes 29 million, 30.1 million. It has varied over the last reappraisal. But of course, that is before there are appeals. We also know that the county district median is just that. It's a percentage. It does not represent, the growth of all properties in that county or in a particular district. It's a median to say that it represents, on average, a median of properties. And what else? It includes all property classifications. That's both residential and commercial. We know this too, and so do you. You've seen the cranes in the sky. You've seen the reports from the various realtor groups. Residential values are strong. The actual increase in residential value has been 33.07%. Also, what's doing well in Davidson County is commercial sectors like apartments and industrial. They're doing very, very well. The National Business Journal had an article that appeared about a month or so ago that talked about permits that was taken out in 2020, record-breaking, $6 to $9 billion in permit. That is a lot of work that's created for our office in order to picked up in order to recognize new construction or improvement on property. But Nashville is soaring. It is very much a city of vitality and value. Property owners can appeal their value. That's something we know. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But if you disagree with your informal review, which has already passed, or if you disagree at the, at another level, which is the level of the formal appeal, you have those opportunity to appeals, and they are your rights. When we look at 2017, the reappraisal showed a 37% median appraisal increase. That was the largest median appraisal increase in Davidson County history, of showing how property values had appreciated since the last reappraisal, which was in 2013. This time in 2021, as we stated before, we now see a 34.05% county median appraisal percentage increase, showing the appreciation of property values in Davidson County since the last reappraisal in 2017. While 37 is the highest and 34 is still pretty high, it still says that Nashville is trending upward. We look at other comparative years, which is 2009, 2017, and 2005. And just want to bring to your point that we track the number of appeals that are provided or that are filed in the informal setting, at the formal setting. And we try to track as much as we can with the State Board of Equalization. A little difficult because they set their dates at different times. But we believe that opportunities like this, Councilmember Surratt, helps property owners to better understand how this process works. Even though 2017 was the highest year for median percentage appraisal increase, 37%, it was not the highest year for formal appeals. It was the second highest, behind 2009. Why we believe that occurred is because property owners better understood. And from what we can tell on the informal, it looks like property owners better understand how it works, because we're not seeing the informals the way we saw it back in 2017. We'll be sharing more about that a little later on in a press release as well. So here we have the 2017 appraisal median percentage increase by council district. This is the phenomenal heat map. People love the heat map. As you can see, all of the increase in values that were the hot market, the pink markets or the hot market, was happening right there in our inner core of Davidson County. But let's just take a look what has occurred now from 2017 to 2021. It's just the opposite. So take a look at this too. You see all the blue markets, the light blue markets. Those are the cool markets. They're not as hot. People are not just jumping over there to buy a home or develop or invest. But look what's happening now in 2021. Bam, look at that. People began to migrate to areas where they can get best bang for their buck. They began to go to those areas that no one was talking about. Oh, let's go out here and see what type of home can I buy above market value, and continue to do that and make that the market in the pink area. So it's a northern area part of Davidson County. And I can almost bet the boundary lines, their adjoining counties, I believe that they're feeling the heat, as you could say, as well, because people are constantly moving further out or moving elsewhere, still want to stay close to certain type of amenities and wanting to be able to get more bang for their buck. It's just the migration that we're seeing, and we're not surprised. So the informal review is already passed, but what was the methods there? It was an opportunity for you to share with us one-on-one for this office in reference to information about your property that we might not know. Now that has passed. It did pass on Friday at 4 p.m. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what happened on that date very briefly. But nonetheless, those that file informal reviews will receive a result of their decision by no later than June the 11th from this office. The best method at that time was to file online at that time. But nonetheless, if you file the formal review and when you get your decision and you disagree with it, you have the opportunity to file a formal appeal. So what is that? And when does that start? Well, it's right around the corner. Monday, May 24th, 2021, you can you can schedule an appeal before the Independent Metro Board of Equalization, whose members are appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the Metro Council. You can appear before the full board or its hearing officers. The deadline to file that appeal is June the 25th at 4 o'clock, not 4:01, not 4:02, not the dog ate by notice, none of that. It is at 4 o'clock. So by not doing that, by not filing an appeal, you could lose your right to appeal in this tax year. After the Metro Board of Equalization adjourns, after you provide information such as if you happen to have an appraisal. We're not advising no one, we're not encouraging anyone to go get a fee appraisal of their property. If you just refinance your home and you got a value on there that came from a fee appraisal that really supports your issue in reference to what you think your home is worth, in conflict what we have stated, provide us with that appraisal. If you got information regarding we'll provide the Metro Board with that information. If you have information regarding square footage, maybe you had something done to your home and you discovered that the square footage that you have is different from what we have. Well, we're going to come out, we're going to trust, but we're going to verify. We want to hear about that information. You may have had a fire to occur in your home and had not been able to get it repaired. The Metro Board wants to hear about that information. That's the same thing that you would have provided in an informal review. So you still got the same right to appeal with the Independent Metro Board of Equalization. And as I said before, while I was about to start in, the Metro Board of Equalization will adjourn. And once they adjourn, you will have yet an opportunity to appeal your decision to the State Board of Equalization. Please be mindful that in that letter, it's going to give you 45 days to appeal to the Independent Board of Equalization if you disagree with the Metro Board of Equalization. Now, in reference to the State Board of Equalization, they are independent as well. They set their own timeline for settling and hearing appeals before them. So they will let you know when they'll allow you to come before them once they've been notified, once it's been notified that you want to appeal to them. Either way, if you do not appeal to the Metro Board of Equalization, if you do not appeal to the State Board of Equalization, it will result in you losing, it may result in you losing further appeals right in the 2021 year. Keep this in mind. Very important to know. We pushed this back in 2017 and we'll continue to say it so you can be aware of your rights. A property owner can appeal every year. There is deadlines and cutoff, know this, but always look at your rule of thumb. And Randy, you tell me if I'm wrong. Your rule of thumb is when you get that tax bill in October, you can file an appeal immediately right after that if you disagree with something.
Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah.
He said just a little bit month after that, but it's always that rule of thumb. But for right now,
for the next year though, that has to be very clear.
Yes, for the next year, Too late. But for right now, follow the deadline dates we're giving you, please, in order for you to make sure you are timely in your appeal. Davidson County has been resilient. We want to give this opportunity to provide some tools in our toolbox that business owners and property owners need to know. Yes, we went through a 2020 tornado. Yes, we continue to be challenged by the pandemic. And I ask that everyone, please continue to stay safe, wear your mask and do your social distancing and all the things to keep you safe. On Christmas morning, we woke up to a Christmas bombing on 2nd Avenue of our historic buildings there. And very recently, it looked like as if 2021 was off to the same type of start to 2020, a February ice storm, a March flood. Keep this in mind. When you have this type of damage or any type of damage has been made to your property, there is Tennessee Code annotated 675-603 and 675-606 that are tools in our toolbox that help us to be able to help you as property owner. 675-603 authorizes the assessor of property to assess the value of the damaged residential, commercial, and industrial property based on its condition after the occurrence, provided that the property is not restored or replaced by September 1. So basically, if your property is not habitable, meaning cannot stay in it, you cannot live in it, or it's not operative, you're a business owner, you cannot operate and it's not operated by September 1, this helps us to adjust the value of your property. Tennessee Code 67606 also allows us to do the same thing for personalties. What are personalties? Chairs, cars, anything that you use to help operate your business. It helps us to prorate the assessment of the personal property for the portion of the year after the destruction and the damage of the property. So what's next? Much of it you already know. April the 23rd, you receive your values. You also were able to see your values online. The heat map, we released it the same day as well. And it also showed the median percentage increase of the commercial and residential property. The 2021 deadline has passed for the informal review. So now we're at the formal appeal. That starts Monday. You have up until Friday, June the 25th at 4 p.m. to file a formal appeal to the Independent Metro Board of Equalization. If you are a commercial property owner and you want to skip going to the Metro Board of Equalization and go straight to the State Board, you can do that. Just contact our office. Tell us that you're wanting to do that. We will contact the state of Tennessee, and you must do this by a deadline of June 25th so that they'll know you want to go straight to them. Either way, if you do not contact or do not file an appeal with the Metro Board of Equalization or the State Board of Equalization, you will lose your appeals rights for that year. We want to just bring to your attention about something that happened on Friday. Property owners were experiencing in the late day, a glitch with the online filing for the informal review. What was happening is that the property owners who were filing online, which still is the best way to file an informal review, were having issues and could not get it done. And when I say late evening, we're talking about 3 o'clock on, and the deadline to file was 4 o'clock, okay? I guess everyone decided, I gotta get it in there last minute and all that, and it just crashed the system. But what property owners did do, they called our call center because our telephone lines were still working. They called the office number, our telephone lines were still working, of course. And our staff appraiser, my incredible staff, the staff appraiser and other staff members, they just took the information manually. And so when everything got fixed, they could able to go ahead and file your informal review. But know this, you did not lose your right to appeal. No, you didn't. Because why? On Monday, you can appeal to the independent Metro Board of Equalization. It's easy. It's not intimidating. It's not a big deal. It's what is your right. And you can also, at that time, when you call on Monday, you can select to have your hearing to be conducted by telephone on that scheduled date or in person. So even though that was a glitch, you still have your rights in place and you have not lost your right to appeal. Councilor Zulfat, thank you so much for this opportunity. It's such a pleasure to be with you. And we stand ready for any questions you may have. And I need to switch my names around.
Thank you. And if you want to stop the screen share, there we go. Thank you. That was a lot of information. I'm looking on the screen to see if I see any question. I haven't seen any yet, but I know that I've done this so many times that sometimes I do miss people's question. So I'm saying that type your question in the comment. I'm looking at it. Jason, if you see any, let me know. But I'm also looking, you can also text it to me. That number is 615-585-2558, 615-585-2558. You can text the question. We want to make sure that we get all your question and we answer all of it. But before we get to the question, there were two things that jumped right at me in your presentation. And I don't know if people were observing. In that when you show the properties that your office do assess, it is interesting that the farmland is the largest part, not even the residential or commercial property. I mean, am I looking at that correctly?
No, I'll let Randy explain that. It was residential farmland together. Go ahead, Randy.
Yeah, and I think, I would have to go back to that, but no, the farmland is not larger than either one of the.
Okay, because I was like, what? Okay, I need to look at, I wanted to ask when you had that slide up, and if you don't mind looking, getting that slide.
Sure.
And let's pull it up and see, because it was just one of the things that jumped into me. And then I was like, okay, does that mean that that's where most of our money is? I
think like Assessor Wilhoite said, it was residential / farm. It's
okay. All right. Well, thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate it. The other thing that also jumped out to me is in the heat map that you showed. And what that really showed to me is that we have a problem. We have a major problem. That's where the issue of affordable housing comes in. And I know that's not what we're discussing today. But if people are living the inner circle, the downtown, to move the outliners, and they've already made all of that right, then where are they going to go next?
Yes, exactly.
And that picture just shows that. And I think I need to get a hold of your slide because it puts so many things into light. I'm looking here.
There's a lot of factors that are playing a role in that. You know, it's not only residential property owners looking for a better bang for their buck. It's also got to do with investors. There's been a lot of talk. What's happening in Davidson County with the corporations for buying neighborhoods and what happened. That is happening. That is real. That is actually real. And it's unfortunate that there were some laws that was not prevented from passing on the state level to keep this type of thing from impacting our neighborhoods. But it becomes the market, and it becomes things that we have to look at because it's a market that we have to contend our values on. So
I think that's a good point to be able to raise and let people understand that yes, the problem that we're having with investors coming from out of town buying everything up. If you bought your house for $100,000, but your neighbor next to you decide to sell their house for 300,000, that becomes the market. The
Yes.
100 is not the market anymore. And so when the
Mhm.
appraisal is done at the average market. And so all of this is part of what is raising that.
Yeah.
I think
What
that
is
Jason
kind of,
wanted to say,
I want to add
sorry,
into
I'll let
that,
you go,
Council.
Assessor Wilhoite, and then I want Jason to chime in. I'm still looking for that question. Jason, you have something to say? I thought you raised
Yeah,
your
I
hand.
wanted to say that, and I think Jason wanted to say something as well, but I will say this, what we're seeing that's really scary, that people are paying above market value now.
Mm.
Cash payments, 140. There's a story that we have just been baffled with, where someone paid 175,000 above market. One recently,
75.
$65,000 above market, and they're paying it in cash.
Wow.
Keep doing this, it becomes
Yeah.
market. And there's not a whole lot we can do about it, because the way the system, and I have to say, baked into the system, we have to look
Mhm.
at the things like the income approach, the cost approach, and the sales
Mhm.
value, because that is the valuation that is done for the appraisal as well. But we also look at other things, but I'm just saying that it's a part of the process that we have to consider.
Jason.
I was just gonna ask, I know that you're not the tax office, that's the trustee's office, but the last time, I think it's important people remember that when we talk about the property taxes and the property reappraisal process, that commercial property owners pay on 40% of their appraised value, compared to 25% for residential homeowners. So homeowners pay at a lower rate than it's the same rate, but they pay on a smaller percentage of their property than a commercial property owner. Do you know, in 2017, I think it was the first time that the commercial properties had accounted for more than half of all the property tax revenue. Is that still the case?
You know what, we have not stated what was our total assessed value. That's interesting. I should know that. I apologize.
Okay.
Information, but I don't think that's not the case. I think that the largest census on the residential disco this time. In 2017, it was the very first time that commercial total assessed value exceeded residential total assessed value. And the reason why I'm thinking that is not the case this time is because the impact in a small sense, got the pandemic and all that playing a role. But I want to be definitive in that answer to you, Jason, and we will make sure we get the data. We probably, we get off this phone call today. We are here today doing some work. And
I will be glad to. I'll be glad to share that next week too, on the next budget conversation. Yes, we would. I think it would be good to know that. Again, if you're on the call and you're listening, if you've tried to get a reappraisal, you got into a snag and you need more information, this is the opportunity to ask your question. If you have any comments on the property taxes, on the reappraisal, we'll welcome your comment as well. I'm looking, and if I miss it, please do text it to me, 615-585-2558. The comments that I see are the ones saying that your office is doing a good job. Thank you for doing this. Those are the comments that I've seen so far. Great info, glad to know that Assessor Wilhoite and her team are on the job. And so that's what I have. I haven't seen a question yet. And so I'll give it 1 or 2 more minutes. If there are no questions, then we will go back and jump into the information about the referendum. And you're still going to be with us till the end of the conversation. Absolutely. And so if somebody jumps in and presents a question, maybe we'll be able to go back to it at the end of our conversation. So again, if you do have any question, don't forget to put it in the comments. I'm so glad the presentation is so, what is it that I want to say? It's so detailed that you don't have any question. So that's a kudos to you. I'd like
to give you some information.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I want to just also add for the listening and viewing audience so that you'll know, we have put on our website at www.padctn.org an opportunity for you to foresee what your taxes could be based on the notice that we provided you with regarding value. Of course, it is a proposed rate that the mayor has provided. The Metro Council has to finalize it. So we have already put on our website for the values that we've provided in our notices, where you can calculate your taxes at our website and get a proposed view of where your tax payment could go if the tax rate does not change and if you did not appeal your value for this year.
Okay, and I think I see a question Thanks, Renee. Renee wants to know if other cities use the same type of valuation or calculation in doing the reappraisal. Other cities in Tennessee.
Other cities in Tennessee use the same, we're under the same guidelines and governance. We're under the same guidelines in reference to how we arrive at value and what have you. We are under different timing of our reappraisals. Some cities do every 4 years, counties, not cities, counties. Some counties do every 4 years for their reappraisal. Some counties do every 5 years for a reappraisal. Some counties do every 6 years for a reappraisal. There is really also right now being studied to do reappraisal every 2 years, which has a lot of validity to it. It's just that you have to make sure you got the staff to be able to do it that way, because it always keep properties at market value, at least every 2 years versus every 4 years. But my point is that we are all governed. We're all governed by the state of Tennessee. We're not governed locally. Locally, we're funded, but we all are under the same rules and regulations as an appraisal or appraiser of doing our work. I'm a member, my office has been a member of the Tennessee Association of Assessors. We meet twice a month to talk about legislation on the Hill that is happening, because that is where legislation impacts us. And we rarely have to talk about legislation that's happened at the Metro Council until very recently, but that's okay. It's just that we are always talking about ways that we can, absolutely do our job better, or make sure that we are on top of new legislation that could affect and impact our works.
Okay. Now, Michael wanted to know if this presentation will be on your website, if there's a way for us to be able to share it. I know that once I get it, I will put it on my site. I'll put it on the Facebook page. I'll put the link and everything there. And so once you guys have it up and running on your site, let us know. Lana wanted to...
You can share on your Facebook. It's not going to be on the website, because we provide this presentation with explanation to community members. Putting it up on the website with no explanation does not give you valuable information.
What you need.
Okay. We'd like to have that interaction between you and this office to help you better understand. So it's almost like giving someone a flyer, but not giving them the information. We would like to hand you this flyer with information. So it will not be on our website, but please join us at any time at any of these outreach and opportunities to talk about it, and invite us to your community. Invite us to have a presentation to talk about this. It is very important. Your home is one of the largest investments that you'll make. If you have a car that worth more than your home, then you may have your priorities a little mixed up, but nonetheless, we want to talk about it. We're trying to be transparent here. We believe that we provided a great product to Davidson County property owners, but we want them to know how we arrive at value, and that we're just not doing willy-nilly giving you a value. Ask us. We want to share the information with you.
Can you give the website for calculating? Thank you, Lana, for calculating your projected taxes based on the proposed certified tax rate?
Yes, ma'am. It is at www.padctn.org. Let me bring some connection to you there. PA, Property Assessor. DC, Davidson County. TN, Tennessee. PDCTN.org.
Thank you.
And
I just added that to the Facebook. I just added that to the Facebook page. And the way you do it is when you get to their website, you will see on your right-hand side that says calculate your your taxes based on the proposed rate. You click on that. It takes you to the page. When you get to the page, there's a lot of information that is explaining the proposed tax rate and everything. But towards the bottom of it, the calculator is right there, because I have tried it. And so that, hey, you have to,
does it work?
So I will encourage you to do that. Also, before we move on to referendum, for those of you that know people that were impacted by flood, by the tornado, this is a lot of people in the minority community, in the immigrant community, people that sometimes may not know how to navigate or do some of these things. I will be inviting Assessor Wilhoite out to some of this community to speak some more about this, but I'm hoping there are not-for-profit organizations out there that I can actually help people navigate this, help them know what to do, because I don't think it would be fair to pay the same rate on a house that was flooded, whether in Bellevue or Southeast or anywhere else, at the rate that it was before the damage happened. So please do reach out. This is your right. We want you to be able to to do it. It's about equity. It's about doing what we need to do. So thank you, Assessor Wilhoite. This has
My
been very
pleasure.
great. If you will stick around with us, you might still get
Yes.
some more questions. Or maybe you may have question for Jason. I think you may want to return the favor like he did too. So, all right. At this point, I want to invite Jason here. Thank you, Jason, for joining us. Jason is with the local SEIU 205. He's the political director. And if everybody knows Jason, he was on one of my budget conversations last year when we started talking about the referendum. At the time when I was putting this schedule together, we were not sure what the final say would be, what the election commission was going to do. But I wanted us to stay in front of it, regardless of what happened. And that's when we did this, and look what happened. And so Jason is here to be able to explain what that is, and I'll let him say it in his own words. So Jason, we now got a referendum. The election commission just voted the other day and said that yes, it could be on the ballot. What does that mean? What does that mean to the city? What does that mean to our property taxes that we're talking about? What does it mean to the city expenses, and to me? What should we know? What should we do? And so thank you, Jason. Take it away.
Great. Well, thank you for having me. And yeah, I do work for the SEIU Local 205. You muted me for a second. Am I there?
Yes.
Okay. I do. I'm Jason. I work with SEIU Local 205. We do represent a large portion of Metro government employees, as well as support staff in Metro Public Schools and staff at Nashville General Hospital. And so as a result, I'm involved in a lot of the budget conversations to understand, what's happening with our city budget. And this referendum, Councilwoman Suara mentioned, the Election Commission has set a date for this referendum. People probably know, people received something like this in the mail. I think every registered voter or homeowner received something like this in the mail. And I was just going to run through what it says it does, and then I want to talk a little bit about what it actually might do, because those two things aren't exactly the same thing. And then there's also a lawsuit or multiple lawsuits that are filed because it is a belief that not only is this some of the provisions that are suggested in here not legal because of current state law or our state constitution, but also that this document that was mailed out to people is misleading and is not a proper form, as the court said in the last version of this. Just quickly, that the judge, Chancellor Lyle, who ruled on this, essentially said that this in order to protect the integrity of the ballot, to make sure that voters know what they're voting on is what it says it is. The previous petition didn't meet the standards of what would qualify there, which essentially meant that it was a misleading document in a lot of ways. And so I'm just going to go through. It has 6 provisions on here that it says it wants to do. The first has to do with property taxes, and I just want to say here, what it says it does is roll back the massive 34 to 37% property tax increase. And I always like to point out to people that if you went back, Assessor Wilhoite mentioned 2017. If you go back to 2017 and you Google and you search as hard as you can, you are never going to find the story or headline that says massive 34% tax cut. But that's exactly what happened. The tax rate went down by 30%. There were no headlines about it. Mayor Barry announced it at a Rotary Club meeting in January of that year. And there wasn't a lot of stories about it. In fact, it was kind of a blip on the radar no one talked about. But the tax rate dropped by 30%. And I just like to point that out when I hear the word massive tax increase here. As we've learned about the certified tax rate, our tax rate changes up and down because we have a property reappraisal process that requires it. And that's just kind of how it works. So they say that they are going to roll back that. And they also say they're going to limit property tax increases at 3% per fiscal year without having a voter referendum. So I just wanted people to understand, first of all, the referendum that we're going to have, that costs $1 million in order to have an election. So every time we have an election, you're talking about spending $1 million as a city in order to have that election. When they say that they're going to limit the property tax increases at 3%, right, and say that if the council would only be able to increase by 3%. Well, the state law and that creates cities and towns and has the taxing authority, that creates the taxing authority for property taxes, says it's up to the legislative body. So I just want to say that I think that this is very misleading. I don't think that what these folks purport to say that they can do, they can actually do. But I want to point out that when they say roll back 34%, what we just found out from the property assessor from the mayor's budget is that the certified tax rate is going to be about $3.28. The tax rate that they want to roll you back to was $3.11 and 11.5 cents. So we're not talking about rolling back 34%. We're talking about changing by 4%. Even if this were legal, which there are questions about whether or not you can change an ordinance, which the budget is an ordinance where we set the tax rate every year. The charter requires that we set the tax rate every year, that somehow you could amend the charter to change an ordinance. I think there's questions about that, but it would not change the tax rate by 34%. It would change it by 4%. So out of the gate, this right here, this language right here that says roll back massive 34% tax increase, that's no longer possible in any way because the tax rate will have already changed. And so that's the first provision. The second is one I really want to highlight for people, this idea about recalling elected officials. Just as an example, in a council district race, you might have 2,500 people vote. What this second provision says it would do is allow 10% of the people who voted in that election to sign a petition and recall their council person, and that person who was recalled would not be able to run in the recall election. So what they're suggesting is if you run for council, Assessor Wilhoite had been a council person, Councilmember-at-Large Suara, you run and you get a majority of the people in your district to vote for you. What this suggests is that 10% of the people that voted can veto the majority of voters in your district and say that not only are you no longer elected, but that you can't run to maintain your seat where you were duly elected by a majority of the voters. So this is an anti-democracy amendment, what they are suggesting to do. This is not about accountability. This is about enabling minority of voters in your district to overrule a majority of voters in your district. And I think people should really understand that. This would also result in us having special election after special election after special election, because there are 35 council districts and there are 5 at large. And I'm sure that there are 10% of people in every district that could find a reason to go out and want to recall their district council person. That's a small number of people to organize. And we would just have endless elections. The third, I want to see, so abolish lifetime benefits for elected officials. I know and a hot topic about council people and elected officials being able to access retiree health insurance after they've served in office. Regardless of how you feel about that, the total amount of money that was at stake in that debate was $1.2 million. And I know $1.2 million is still $1.2 million, but in the context of our city budget, it is 1/20th of 1% of the entire budget. So this is a very symbolic item here, designed to, I think, stoke people's anger over something. But the reality is our council people serve in a part-time capacity. They don't get paid a full-time salary. But I will tell you that after having worked with council members, they are working full-time for you and getting paid for part-time. And this is a very small benefit that is afforded to them for people who have served the public. And I think, you can have a difference of opinion, but I think we want to encourage people to into public service and not make it even harder and exclusive. Right now, it's very difficult for someone to serve a Metro Council because you have to have a job with flexibility that allows you to go do that work. It's very difficult to have a full-time job with no flexibility and be an effective council person. And we should think about that with public service. But in the context of saving money here, we're talking about 1/20th of 1%. The fourth provision here, preserve voter charter amendments. There are 2 ways to amend the charter in Metro. Voters can sign petitions that can be put forward like we have here, or the council is allowed to put forward amendments to the charter so that they can fix problems that happen with things in the past. Just as an example, I believe in the Community Oversight Board, there wasn't the language in that said how old you have to be to serve on the Community Oversight Board, and whether or not anybody would want an age requirement for that board. If we decided you wanted to say you need to be at least 18 or whatever, this is saying that the council wouldn't be able to put that forward to make that change. And typically council-sponsored amendments to the charter are for recognizing when language hasn't been thought out clearly and trying to fix it. That's a lot of the time what the council does with the charter with an amendment. And what these folks want to do, and with this language that is very imprecise that I'm looking at here, they're trying to make it so that you would never be able to clean up, the council wouldn't be able to clean up the charter, which is a lot, which is, I think, the way the charter amendment process was conceived was to give the Metro Council the ability to fix things. The fifth and sixth have to do primarily with sort of like large land transactions and the sports teams. And so just quickly, I want to say, it says protect publicly owned parks, lands, and greenways, and that sounds great and all. And I think everyone would agree that that's what we want to do. But what they have put in here is they've said that public referendum will be required for transfers of interest of publicly owned properties valued over $5 million or leases exceeding 20 years, unless prohibited by state law. And what you should understand here is if you have a lot of the transactions that happen are between Metro departments. So if you have Metro schools or Metro parks trying to have, and they have a surplus property that was being used for one thing, it's not being used for the same thing anymore, and they want to transfer it to another Metro department, what you're saying here is that you have to spend $1 million and have an election, and then everyone has to vote on it. And this is, again, this is one where it sounds like a good idea, but what they're actually doing is they're tying the hands of Metro government in a way that's just counterproductive. We have accountability. You have public hearings on processes like this. Whether or not you were in favor of any deals that have happened in the past, there have been public process and public input, and we have elected officials that we elect to make these decisions. And really what this is designed to do is to make our government not function well, and to force us to have election after election after election, which does not protect the taxpayers, which is what this says it is supposed to do. And the last thing is public promise, protect promises to Nashville. And this says, you know, if the professional sports teams don't play in a place for more than 24 consecutive months during the term of a lease, then they lose the lease on the building and it reverts to public land and property. I think, number one, I'm not a lawyer, but I suspect that you can't legislate away a contract this way. But I also would say, you know, there are times when, let's say, like we have extreme weather, right? And we had flood or a tornado. And let's say the Titan Stadium gets hit by a tornado and there's immense damage and they have to fix it. Well, what this says is if they don't play there for 24 months, then the Titans no longer play in the city of Nashville, period, right? That's what this says. Same thing with the Predators. If there was another flood or something like that and they weren't able to play, they had to play somewhere else for 24 months, you're going to lose the Predators because of this. And so I think that it's, again, I'm not sure the intent of the people that have put this together. They spent a lot of money. Someone spent a lot of money printing and sending this mail to 200,000, 300,000 people. That costs a considerable amount of money. And the people doing this won't tell us who's funding this effort. And so I think you can only, there's only speculation on why they're doing this. But that's kind of a rundown of what they say it does. I think that there are considerable legal questions about whether or not any of this is legal. That's why it's in court, and there'll be a trial on June 7th. But I do think it's important for people to realize that what's unfortunate, and I know I feel what I so appreciate Assessor Wilhoite giving this presentation. Unfortunately, what's happened in Nashville over the past few years is we have people that are taking our regular reappraisal process and they are weaponizing it for political gain. They are taking what is a normal process for our city to function, which is we have to figure out how much our properties or values are worth, and then set a tax rate that appropriately funds the city. And we got some people that are playing semantic games with that are talking about raising and hiking and massive increases and the biggest ever. And what what really we have is we have problems of a growing city. We have the cost of housing that is rising all the time. We have a city that's grown by 100,000 people over the course of a decade, and we've not kept up with public services. And so we're feeling the strain of that. And there are people that I think not in good faith are trying to exploit those problems and force us to waste money on elections and cause a lot of confusion for people. And so I hope that some of this is, I hope I cleared up some of it, but I'm sure there's probably questions from people. And, I don't know if maybe you can let me know if that all makes sense.
Thank you, Jason. You did great. And I hope that somebody said in the comments that they wish everybody would hear this. And somebody said that, thank you for breaking this down. Because when you hear about the referendum, they only talk about, we want to roll it down to the 34%. We only want to do it to, and breaking down all the 6 provisions, I think it's very eye-opening for people that did not know that. An area that I wanted to talk about is even on that 34%, which it's only 4% now, right? And you did mention a lot of things about that. But I want you to look at it from 2 angles, right? I did this budget conversation last year when we were talking about property taxes increase, and people were very engaged, right? When you look at the mayor's budget now that is investing and fully funding school, not a lot of people are talking about the budget this year, right? Because the city is doing what the city needs to do. But I don't think the mayor will be able to make those investments without those property taxes. And I think that people are not making that connection. I want you to speak to that. And then I want you to also talk about, in brief, what does your property taxes fund? I mean, what is it that what is that 4% that these people are making everyone riled over? That amount, what do you get for it? I know the assessor tax, assess taxes, so that's why I'm not asking her. But you a study of a student of property taxes, and you and I have had a lot of conversation. Just break it down in a way people will understand, because sometimes I think they use a lot of big words and fair tactic that financially doesn't make sense.
So, oh, are you asking me or are you asking?
I'm asking you, Jason.
Okay.
So just quickly on a median, approximate household value in Davidson County around $250,000. If you want to think about that's a fairly average home value in Nashville. The property taxes on a $250,000 home is about $170 a month, $171.25 ish. This is like ballpark. So if you think about how much that is, right? A lot of people, that's less than your Comcast bill, right? Or less than your AT&T bill, or what you pay for your cable and internet. And what you're getting for that $172 a month is, if someone breaks into your home, the police will come when you call them. If your house catches on fire, the fire department will come. The street in front of your house that you drive out in and get to work is paved. If you're in the USD, your trash is picked up. Your recycling is picked up. You have pipes in the ground that deliver clean water to your home and take away your waste. There are parks, outdoor spaces that you can go enjoy with your family. There are libraries that you can go enjoy with your family and take out books and find entertainment. There are community centers where your kids can go after school, play basketball, or whatever it is they wanted to. The value that you get for your property taxes, I would argue, is some of the best value you could get for the money that you spend in your life. And I think that in the scale of what cities pay, if you look at the tax burden in comparable cities, we're very low in Davidson County and Nashville compared to other places. And I think it's really important for people to think about, what are you getting for what you're paying? Because you're getting a tremendous value for your dollars. And you don't hear that every day, but it's true if you really think about what you're getting. The most dangerous part of this referendum, if this provision was legal, particularly around this 3% idea for the 3% cap of being able to set your property tax value, because we have a reappraisal process that forces the tax rate to change. What that would do is this recent announcement for teacher pay, right? You would not be able to fulfill that commitment. And the reason you can't is because you can't project these recurring revenues into the future, right? So everyone seems to agree that we want to pay our teachers better because we want to have the best possible people going into the teaching profession. And we would not be able to maintain that at all. Everyone knows that in Nashville, when it rains a lot, we have a stormwater infrastructure problem in Nashville and Davidson County. Everyone knows that when it rains, you'll see the water. Like in most streets, you see it piling up. We're trying to get to a place as a city where we can make investments to fix those things. This would cap that. We would never be able to do that. If my friends from the firefighters were here, they would talk to you about something called the golden hour, which is if you call 911, the rule of thumb is there's an hour that if they respond and get you the treatment that you need within an hour, lives are saved at a tremendous rate. And we are already struggling to meet that as a city. We've had our 911 call center has not expanded to the level as needed to meet the growth in the city. And you're really putting people's safety at risk just from if you're having a medical emergency, having people be able to get to you in time. This also affects your homeowner's insurance because your homeowner's insurance looks at where the closest fire station is. And if you can't, as a city, continue to build fire stations and put them in places that are spread out enough, you're going to pay more in homeowners insurance, and you're at risk of a fire truck not being able to get to your house if it's on fire. And we're not going to be able to maintain the level of services for parks, community centers, as it is right now. The director of parks was in a budget hearing the other day, parks and recreation, community centers and parks, and they asked, how many people are you actually short in order to perform the services that would be what you think? And they said they were 100 positions away from being able to adequately perform the services they would like to. And that's because the city has grown so fast. And so I think that's the most dangerous part of this referendum is that if you care about good public services and the city being, functioning very well, and schools and quality education, it's going to prevent us from being able to make any of those investments.
And I'd like to add, Council Lady,
Yes,
if I could add to that, his answer there, which was well said. You also have to think about the salaries of the various largest employer of the city, which is central government. I mean, we're going to be picking and choosing in reference to who does not get a raise, who don't get a raise. In this case, no one getting any money at all. And the cost of living increasing, because you already know that Davidson County, its cost of living has gone up. So we cannot keep in pace in reference to the salaries that you're providing to your largest employer of the city, which is the county government. Who's going to be doing the work? How are we making these decisions? And when you think about another point to what Jason has stated in reference to what you're getting the best bang for your buck in reference to the tax rate, you can not only just compare the tax rate to other similar cities like ours, not only with Davidson County, compare it to Hamilton County, compare it to Shelby County, compare it to Knox County. And we have the lowest tax rate, and you getting all this for that tax rate. You can even take that tax rate and compare it to other smaller cities, like and like in Mount Juliet, what have you. And you will find that our general service district is, in reference to its tax rate, is very competitive to the tax rate of those smaller cities. So it's a lot that you compare Nashville to and see that you're getting a whole lot for the money. And of course, with that 3%, that's going to really be choking the city. It's going to impact a lot of agreements that this city has made in reference to ratings and things like that. So I think it's a whole lot that's going to go into that. That's going to
Thank you. And I think great minds think alike. I was thinking about the employees too. I was going to say, Jason, you forgot the employees, because people forget that, like you said, the city county is the third largest employer, right? And so we have a lot of people that works for the city. And so when you're talking about cutting, and I remember during budget season last year, some of the people that are now behind the referendum were actually pushing for the city to lay people off. Right. And so this is not about the citizens. This is not about caring for people. I mean, I don't know what the idea was. I know that, yes, everybody was upset about the 34%. But I think that if we did not do that time, we would not be where we are today. And I also want to say that people have to remember that the workers that we're talking about, that's your family too. Your family is not an abstract people somewhere. It's our residents, our citizens that we're taking care of. The teachers, the firemen, the police officers, all of that are citizens too. And so when we're talking about let's cut it back, what are we talking about cutting back? When you cut back the property taxes and you cut back government revenue, then you are cutting back government services. That's what it boils down to. And that is the services that help the people. Yes, Jason.
There was one other thing I just wanted to mention because you talked about the people pushing the referendum, and I did a little segment with Mr. Roberts who ran this petition, and one thing I mentioned to him is that, and Assessor Wilhoite brought up the idea of equity and how different markets and different parts of the city change, but on someone's property, in a lot of cases, we had people whose values had gone up by 20%, and Mr. Roberts was one of these people. His value had gone up by 20% over 10 years, but his tax dollars had only gone up by 5%. And so when you adjust to the current tax rates that we set now, they're just now paying like on par with like inflation of their property value. And so there is sort of a misunderstanding of, what has happened here. And a lot of the folks, honestly, that were pushing this last year and against setting an adequate tax rate, because the fact is we just had a tax rate that was too low. And a lot of the people that have been against that it's because they've been benefiting of their taxes have actually been going down for 2 cycles. They're paying less than they were a decade ago until last year. So I think that equity conversation that came up in the assessor's presentation is very important to remember. Different parts of the city have benefited over different periods of time.
Yeah, thank you. Those are great points. And you said something about, and somebody reiterated it, that, if you don't have a fire station close to your house, what you don't want to pay in that 4% increase in property taxes, you'll pay it on your house insurance. But not only that, what about the perspective or the possibility of actually having, heaven forbid, your house burn down because we don't have enough fire officers to respond to it. And so people need to understand that this is about the services. This is not about anything else. And I think it's good to break it down as such. And I'm so grateful that you were able to go through it one by one. I'm still looking for question. People are just making comments. Thank you. I see folks making comments in here, and I think that's wonderful. And so if you have questions, please put your comments your question in the chat. If you want to, you can text it to me. It's 615-585-2558. I want to say something about the council benefit. I know a lot was said about that, but it's one of the things they're using in order to rile people up about council member getting benefits after leaving. I'm going to say this, and I've said this before. I'm not on council insurance. I've never been since I joined, but I have that option. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is not because I want to keep having the insurance. That's not it. But I went to bed this morning at 3 a.m. Yesterday morning was 3 a.m. I was trying to get my newsletter, get my blog. I don't have a staff. I have a full-time job. Then I have to answer everybody, do the meetings, take the calls. If you don't respond to people, email me 1 a.m., 2 a.m. I've responded to people's email 1 a.m., 2 a.m. I do the council meeting. I do the sub meetings. I do the community meetings. I do the task forces. Right? I have to make appearances. I have to take the phone call. I have to do Zoom meetings with everybody with my regular job that I cannot afford to lose because that's the one paying my insurance, right? But there are colleagues that don't have that other second job. That's one. There are also people that wants to run for office that don't have the same privilege that I have to be able to say, I don't have to take that, or I can still keep my job. My job pays me very well and takes care of a lot of things. Those are the kind of conversation that we're having. And every time this conversation comes up, it's really very upsetting to me because in the conversation, we paint the people that are supporting it as the bad people, as they want to it's a personal privilege, or they just want to keep using the taxpayer money. And that's the thing that I don't like in this conversation. When you look at the state, when you look at the federal level, everyone serving, right, gets time off. Our state legislatures are there fully from January to April, at most May, right? Council has no break. We end September 30th and pick up the next term October 1st, right? It rolls into each other. So it's not a full-time job. I love what I do. I'm doing it because I want to serve. I didn't even know about salary or benefits before I joined. Most of our colleagues don't. But once you pick up this job and you realize how much time you're serving, people are losing their job. People are losing their job. People are having to stop their job. People are having not to have, when you stop your job, guess what? Your retirement stop. The money that you're paying, your work experience on your resume stops for your career. It's a sacrifice that people are doing. And as I listen to the conversation, not that I don't get why people were upset last year. It was a hard year. It was a lot of people were hurting. People were losing their job. I get all of that. What I don't understand and what I keep saying we have to stop doing is painting anyone that speaks up to be the villain, to be somebody that was just, to be greedy and all of that stuff. A lot goes into this. We want more people to run. The people that you have serving for you are doing it because they want to. I'm not saying all of this publicly because I don't like what I do or I'm complaining. I'm not. I love it. But I'm just trying to give an overview of some of the things that goes into it. And while I can sit back and say, no, it's okay. Not everybody has the job that I have or has a husband that can take care of me and pay the rest of my bill. Not everybody has that, but we don't want the people running to just be the people that has that chance. You want that diversity in the opinion. You want people that are going through what the residents are going through. You want people that can say, that's me, right there, to be part of the people making the decision. And that is very crucial. And we don't want to lose that voice. So don't let people scare you into thinking something that it's not. As you're looking at this referendum, that benefit for the value that you're getting, it's worth it. I know people that have served, that lives, that have a hard time getting a job and getting back into the workforce. It's a lot. When you look at the time that we spend and the money that we get, if you divide it, we're actually working less. We're working minimum wage. The city is getting a full-time job at a part-time pay. I've done the analysis and all of that. But anyway, I'm not doing all of this. But it's one of the things that gets me anytime we talk about council salary or council benefit, that people think when you're speaking passionately, that it's because you're trying to enrich yourself. No, it's not that. Trust me, it's not that at all. I'm blessed to have good employer. They allow me to, make up my work and do everything that I need to do. But I still have to leave work at 5. Get home, take care of my family, then start council stuff and sleep at 2, 3 a.m. and then start the next day. Weekend, today, tomorrow, I've got to get ready for the council meetings. It's not just when you sit at the council, you got to read it, you got to you investigate it, have your answers. That's how you serve the people. If you're spending and doing what you're supposed to do, not just sit and collect the paycheck, you have to spend the time. So I say all of that because this is coming up in the referendum. Constant council benefit is so big because everybody thinks it's so great. It's not. It is not. Okay? It is not. What you will end up doing is lose good people that can't afford it. I'm going to say it again. I'm not one of those people. And I'm saying that on purpose because I want people to know that, yes, but I fight for it. I believe in it. And so we leave that at that. Let me get off of this because it gets me very, very emotional.
Well, Counselor, I must say I share your emotion because that's the very thing that I discovered when I became a council person. I was a full-time employee for the state of Tennessee. I did not take the benefit either. And there were other things that came up and I did not take the benefit. It was based on passion of why I was there. But I said after about 3 months on in the position, this was designed for someone who is retired because it does take up a lot of your time. And unless you have passion for people and a passion for change that could benefit all people, you don't want to run. I mean, you have to have that passion. You cannot pay for passion. I want to also add to you, this office that we have here, amazing person, staff, what have you. We look at things that are happening in the city and, we try to play a role and think about it and what have you. But of course, doing the people's business is our first and foremost responsibility. When we were talking about a comparative in reference to what Jason said earlier, this is a very good example in reference to what Randy, who just brought up to me about the fact of another city, about what you're getting for the bang for your buck compared it to other cities. You have to compare yourself to other cities to see how we're operating. You'll have to, and you cannot come to the conclusion. You must come to the conclusion that, wow, we're doing good. So I want Randy to share this one example because I like to have my impact of my staff in reference to Charlotte. And Jason, you will understand this as well.
Yeah, and this is in regards to, we're compared to Charlotte, North Carolina. We have been for years. Every time we turn around, somebody's comparing us to Charlotte, which is Mecklenburg County. And in comparison to Mecklenburg and the Nashville, the Greater Realtors Association, in I think it was the end of last year, the average or the median residential sales price was around $344,000. And I was just looking at this a few days ago. And on a $344,000, Nashville, based on the proposed rates, you would pay about $2,827. And for this same house in valued at $344 in Mecklenburg County or Charlotte, North Carolina, you would pay $3,314, which is almost $500 more a year. So it's and if you're looking at an effective tax rate, which is just a percentage of your appraisal, we're at 0.882 and they're at around 1.03 and some change. I can't remember. But again, we get a lot for what we pay. We're paying a lower tax rate. So it's I just want to put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. And I think that Jason did say this, that, you know, oftentimes in scaring people, folks use percentages without putting an amount to the dollar amount. And I think when you do that, people will say that it's not that much. I want to answer this question that popped up. Renee was asking, and this is what she wrote. The question I hear a lot and what confuses many Nashville residents is why with all the new homes and businesses, how we ended up behind in tax revenues. I think I'll take it. I think there's a perception that some corporations have been given tax deals that were too generous. Can you speak to that, please? We have about 10 minutes, so that's why I said I can take that. Last year, and if you go to zulfatsuara.com, I've done a couple of blogs starting from last year on property taxes, budget, and where we're here. I had one on how did we get here. And it wasn't one thing, it was a combination of things. One of it is the fact that for many years, we refused to raise taxes for political reasons, because we did not want to people to be upset. See what happened when we decide to be bold and do it. All right. A lot of us were called names. And so, but it wasn't about being reelected or anything like that. It's about doing what is right for the people. And so because we did not, for many years, people were paying the same amount that they've been paying for a long time. That was there. Yes. When you look, the other factor that was into it is that there's a lot of development downtown, but there is an agreement with the state that the property taxes generated in certain geographical area goes to the downtown corporation for the convention center. And so you may be seeing money coming in, but we don't have access to that money. Another thing that is a factor to that is that the state, believe it or not, when you look at our BEP, the funding of our schools, right? The state funding of our school is gone down over the years, but we have to keep making it up and funding it at the level not past what they got last year. So every time the state drops in their funding, the county have to make it up. The deal is a factor. And I think that I would be lying if I said that, yes, we did not give deals in the past and that we should not talk about that. That is a fact. We did do that. And thanks to people like Stand Up Nashville and NOAA and community organization, the union leaders, we have what we call the Do Better Bill. We started saying that for every deal that we're doing, let's have a community-based agreement, right? We have a CB agreement that talks about what are we getting for our money. If you're coming in here and we're going to give you money, what are you going to show for it? What do we get out of it? How do we make sure that it's working for the people? How do we make sure that we put people to work that are citizens here? So those are some of the things that we're doing, but it's not just one thing. It's a number of things. It's many years that got us here. It's the fact that instead of raising taxes, we were spending our fund balance. We had no savings. And so every time, instead of going and getting money, it's like, you know, in your home, right? Instead of going and getting more money, you have the opportunity to you did now. So you go into your savings, and we were spending the savings to such a state that it became so terrible. The state comptroller have to come to us and say, we'll shut you down. You're not managing your business as well. And so I wish I could say it's one thing. And so if you want more, go read up on that blog on my website. These conversations are also, I do a newsletter that I send out. If you want to join my newsletter, sign up on my website to receive them. You get a recap of all of this conversation. All of these videos will be on the Facebook, but it will also be on the Metro YouTube page. So if people don't have Facebook and they still want to see it, it's also on the Metro YouTube page. Keep asking questions, keep holding us accountable. There's so much more that we can do. Can we do better? Yes. The state preempting us, oh my God, we don't even have enough time for me to talk about the state not allowing us to do some of the things that we could have done. So there is growth, there is money coming in. Some are tied up, some are being used, but we've got so many years of not being where we need to be in terms of our cash balance, in terms of services, in terms of things that we need to do. And unfortunately, we decided to take the decision last year, and last year was the worst year, for all of us. It was a terrible, terrible year, but it was what we had to do. I feel bad for it, but I cannot apologize for it because we don't want to make the same mistakes that has been made in the past. And I feel good that because of that tough decision that a lot of us had to grapple with, and believe me, we pay taxes too. I saw my tax bill, but it was a hard pill to swallow. But for me, when the mayor announced that he's going to fully fund our schools, when the mayor announced that he's not going to put money in affordable housing, more money in affordable housing, when the mayor announced that Southeast is going to get a precinct now for the police department, when he made all those announcements in the budget, it made me feel like we made the right decision last year. It was a tough one. It was a hard one. We tried to make up for it with CARES Act and help people as much as we can. But that's where we are. I know I'm saying a whole lot. I'm supposed to be moderating. I need to let my guests talk instead of taking over. That's not what I'm supposed to do. But I just
Passionate.
I just get very passionate about it because I want people to really understand that you have a lot of people that care, that are working for you and serving you. And contrary to what people might say out there, it's not that easy. So let me be quiet, Jason. I need you to. I see you wanted to say something, but read the blog and listen to Jason. Jason got some more insight, and listen to Assessor Wilhoite.
Just a couple of things. I mean, Metro employees were right there with people saying, like, tax increment financing, this is going to be a problem, right? We're giving these loans on future tax revenues, and this is going to be a problem if we don't pay attention. Now, here's the problem, though. We lost that argument, and those deals were made, and those are legal binding contracts for 30 years. And so we can be mad about them all day long, but we can't undo them. And so that's just a fact. But I want people to focus on one other thing, which is when I hear this, these bad deals or giveaways, and I saw in the chat, Assessor Wilhoite is reminding, as I was thinking the same thing, if you don't adjust the tax rate sometime within the 4-year cycle of reappraisals, if you go from one reappraisal to the second reappraisal, and you have, like, if you go 5 years and you don't adjust the tax rate, you're going to have a problem. We know that historically, that you're going to have a problem. And I want to explain why, in my opinion, the biggest tax giveaway that has happened, especially for these big commercial properties, happens when that happens. Right now, right now, when I said on a $250,000 house, you're paying about $172 a month. And that comes out to, I don't know, math in front of me, I do the whole year, $2,500 or something like that. Opry Mills Mall, for instance, is the most expensive commercial property in the city, or it was last time. It's worth $360 million. Their property tax bill is over $6 million. So when you have like all this, when you're talking about this rate up and down and how that affects your home, and we're talking about the difference of $40, $50 a month or $30 a month in some cases, whatever that might be, right? So you're paying $2,500 for the year. You're getting $6 million from the biggest commercial property in the city, right? And so when you think about what you're paying for, if your bill, if you pay $3,000, for the year, then it takes 30 of those, 20 or 25 of those houses to pay for one teacher, right? To pay for one teacher. But we've got Opry Mills Mall, they pay $6 million because of the property tax rate. And I just think it's really important for people to understand that, right? If you think you're going to be saving because of the tax rate coming down a little bit, think about what these big commercial properties are saving, because that's where the real giveaway is. And I think it's just really important for people to think about that.
Thank
Council
you.
Lady, I
Yes,
want to
ma'am.
share, earlier, Jason, you had asked the question regarding the total assessed value regarding commercial and residential. It's interesting. I don't know how we missed giving that point, because in the last appraisal, we did make that a point so that people didn't know that. I don't know how we missed it this time, because we try to give you the same information, data for the next time, as well as more information as talking points for knowledge as a council member, for the mayor, and for the people at large. So we've gotten the number, and commercial total assessed value was 23.6 billion. Residential was 20.3 billion for appeals. And we're gonna say for right now, right around there, I'm gonna release that because Council Lady at Large, you definitely want to know that, and all the other council members as well. Once again, commercial total assessed value has out trended commercial. This is for appeals. Now in 2017, that was 15.1 versus 14.1 respectfully, commercial and residential. After appeals, it became very, very close to each other, even though commercial still exceeded residential, they still got kind of close. Would be interesting how this happens this time in reference to the appeals. So this is information, you know, so I want to answer that question for you.
Yeah, that's great. And
get that
so
to you.
Renee, those that's a good way to have it, because in the years now we're seeing all those big buildings coming up, actually helping us collect more from the commercial than the residential. That's the points that the assessor just made, that last year and this year. And I think that, and I hope that it continue to trend up that way. So that is good, and that is good information to know. And I would like to see where we end finally. This has been a great conversation. A lot of people stayed with us, even though we did 30 minutes extra today. But I think that it's a lot of things that people want to know. We have to continue this conversation. Like I said, let's people keep getting help on their reappraisal, and how to make sure that, you know, if they have information to appeal, how to appeal, that they're doing that. On the referendum, we'll keep watching what's going on with that. But like you hear from Mr. Freeman, some part of it is legal, some part of it is not legal, some part of it is not, and the parts that they're trying to use the most is its impact is reduced, because we have a low tax rate now, and we're only looking at 4% instead of 34%. So people have to be mindful of that. And then the evils of the other things that are in between there. We need to educate our people. We need to let folks know. On the recall, yes, that's another big one. You don't want to make sure the people that you elected, that you want there, that overwhelmingly you have there, you don't want just 10% to now come back and recall them. They can do it, it's in America, but to now say that the person cannot run again, I think that's the part that is like, okay, you recall him because you don't want him. What about the people that want him or her? They should be able to vote them back in if they want to. But to now say we have the power to recall, but no, you cannot run again. I think that's where I see a problem. And so we'll keep the conversation going. Keep you know where to reach me, Zulfat Suara, zulfat.suara@nashville.gov, email, Facebook, all of it, number 615-585-2558. Reach out to your council member, reach out to me. We want to continue to hear from you. Send your questions. If I miss it, I'll make sure to get you an answer afterwards. Again, thank you so much for spending your Saturday afternoon with us, Assessor Wilhoite and Randy. Randy, thank you so much for being here. Both of you for providing this information. We'll make sure we get it out as much as possible. Share the video for people that are not on here so they can see it, because it will not be on their website. Jason, you're my property taxes man. You're working hard for the workers now. You're working hard for the workers. See, we got two tax men here, y'all. The union is working great for our workers, and it's about our residents, and we're all trying to do all that we can. To everyone that joined us, thank you for being here. Next week, we'll be talking about schools. The mayor said he is fully funding the school. What does that mean? What is the breakdown of the MMPS budget? What is MMPS doing with it? How is MMPS going to break it down? What goes into all of that? And then this year, with everything that the school is been through with COVID, virtual, open, all of that, it's all conversation, school next Saturday. And the Saturday after that, we'll be looking at public safety. Is our cost of law enforcement too high, or not high enough? I'm going to have Dr. Phyllis Hildreth and a wonderful panel that will be joining me for that conversation. So again, I hope you join us next Saturday. Keep the conversation going. We're listening. And I promise I don't usually talk like this on my conversations. Today was just a little bit So I promise I won't talk so much next time. I'll keep listening to you all. Thank you all for joining me. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Assessor Wilhoite. Thank you, Randy. You all have a wonderful afternoon. Go out, enjoy the beautiful day. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.